Hello and welcome to the Missouri State Conference on Cover Crops and Soil Health. I'll be serving as your host. I'm Dr. Rob Myers, a crop and soil scientist at the University of Missouri and direct the Center for Regenerative Agriculture, which is the group that is hosting this conference. We're pleased to have you with us today. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes of brief introduction and then we'll get to our first speaker. So we appreciate the support of the Missouri Natural Resources Conservation Service in sponsoring this conference. You're going to hear from the leader of that organization, Scott Edwards, in a moment. I also want to thank Dr. Kelly Wilson, the Assistant Director for the Center for Regenerative Ag, for all of her leadership in planning this conference. She did a great job putting it all together. We have several wonderful speakers from Missouri this morning. So we have a couple different farmer panels we're going to get to. We also have Dr. Abby Wick. And I wanted to briefly run through the program for you this morning, what we're going to have going on so that you can see that. So again, we're going to start with Scott Edwards here in a moment. He's the Missouri State Conservationist, which means he's in the leader position with the state agency. We'll have our farmer panel of some farmers sharing their experiences about cover crops in different regions of the state. And we've got some great videos of them on their farm as well as them speaking to you. We'll have a little time for question and answers after the farmer presentations. I'm sorry, we won't have time after Scott's talk for questions. We'll get right into the farmer panel. Then we'll have a short break midway through the program before we go to Dr. Abby Wick from North Dakota State University, who will talk about cover crop impacts and soil health. And then we'll close the morning with a second farmer panel talking more about cover crop impacts on grazing. So we've got three producers who have been actively grazing cover crops, along with a researcher who is working with grazing of cover crops, Dr. Ashley Conway. So we hope you can stay with us for most of the morning. We do have a second morning tomorrow morning, same time frame, 9 a.m. to noon Central Time. And we'll be using the same Zoom link to kick off the session tomorrow, but we do have some breakout sessions late in the morning tomorrow. So we do have about 640 people registered for the conference. We will be recording the conference and making that available later. A lot of the attendees are from Missouri, but I think we have over 200 from out of state, from all across the United States and several countries. So welcome wherever you're tuning in from. I think with that, Scott, I will turn it over to you and get to your slides here. So I want to welcome Scott Edwards for some opening remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Myers, and good morning, everyone. I wanted to give you a virtual welcome for everyone taking the time out and joining us today for the Cover Crop and Soil Health Conference, but really a special shout out to Dr. Kelly Wilson and Dr. Myers for pulling this together and allowing us to be a part of this conference. Next slide. So I am with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and we are about helping people help the land, the voluntary implementation of conservation. So that's through technical assistance and financial assistance and a whole alphabet soup of acronyms. I will try not to use an acronym as I go through this meeting, but no guarantees. But what I wanted to do today was kind of give you a national perspective of what we're doing around soil health, cover crops, and then kind of drill down to give some examples of what we're doing here in Missouri, and then look forward to some future funding and different legislation that's trying to make its way through Congress right now that I think is truly exciting for all things soil health and specifically for cover crop. Next slide. So when you look nationally, these numbers are just specifically with our conservation practice cover crop. And you can see that over time how it was building up until fiscal year 18, fence and all of the grazing systems that go around that practice was the #1 practice. The agency began probably 10 years ago really having an emphasis on soil health and putting a lot of effort into that. And you can see just from the total number of dollars spent on that one single practice. In 19, there were just 2,200 contracts, but $27 million invested nationwide into cover crops. Then you see that large increase that became the national #1 conservation practice of all of the 200 plus things that we can do on private lands across the U.S. Cover crop very important, to topping out in fiscal year 21 at $82 million being spent in that. As you come down to Missouri, it is also, over the last couple of years, it has become our #1 conservation practice that we have implemented. And so over that time, just north of $11.5 million on 230,000 acres. And so as we've embraced this and started moving towards it, there's been a lot of new things that we have done. One is just expanding the number of years that you can actually have if you take a financial assistance contract to try to make that change on your farm to move through that. And so these investments are continuing to grow and build. Next slide. So in Missouri, the #1 thing that we do is technical assistance. So without any program, it's free of charge. It's just where we have conservationists spread across we have offices in 99 counties. We have about 330 NRCS employees, but there are over 200 plus partner employees. And our soil and water conservation district's very important. And I know on the agenda for this, you'll get to hear about their programs and what they're able to deliver. But combined, we are putting out near north of $100 million of conservation assistance just here in Missouri. Next slide. So beyond just the general assistance that we offer in our county by county office, Missouri took a step a few years back of getting down into some specialized assistance. And so we have 4 soil health specialists that is the state's divided up into 4 general administrative areas. We have 1 specialist in each area, and their sole focus is soil health. And not only working internally with our employees and training them up and making sure they have the most cutting edge knowledge, but actually getting out and working and doing. Each soil health specialist has one of these rainfall simulators that they can go and take. And so many of you, I'm sure, have seen this in demonstration, but just in a short 30-minute, 1-hour demonstration with that rainfall simulator and looking at how a systems approach can help from grazing lands to cropland, but seeing that aha moment when they take and flip those pans over and you can see the infiltration rate. It's been a very valuable tool to get out and to help. We've ramped up, as we all have in this pandemic. Face-to-face training has been difficult, but the virtual platform does allow for more people to come in and do that. We've just offered a short course for all of our employees. And then for new employees, we just finished with 95 new employees last week with a short course to try to get them interested and excited about all of the soil health. Next slide. So on the technical side, that free assistance that we can offer, if you go to our website there, we have a ton of cover crop tools and around the economic value of that. And so the easiest way, that website is a long website to try to write down. But if you just Google Missouri NRCS, in the top right-hand corner, there's a tab, Soil Health. When you click on that, you can get a pretty good spreadsheet that's just a cost estimator. Put your inputs and it'll show you your return, different fact sheets. There's a questionnaire to help decide which cover crop might be right for you. But then there's a link to some case studies. I know we have a farmers panel that's coming up, and it's always valuable to hear from people who are actually implementing on the ground in their own words. And so we have some more in-depth case studies that you can look to see exactly how and what we're doing here in Missouri. Next slide. So there's the infrastructure bill that has passed, is moved through the Congress. This Build Back Better is kind of the second piece of that legislation that's going. And from the House, when it moved to the Senate, an amendment that was passed is going to add $21 billion to conservation. And so that funds, the majority of that is going to flow and almost double our financial assistance that we are delivering currently now in the fiscal year 18 Farm Bill. One provision that's in that will be nationwide, and we'll definitely have opportunities here in Missouri, is a new $5 billion program just for farmers planting cover crops. And so, again, more emphasis when you talk about climate smart agriculture and what can we do in that systems approach. I think the agency and the producers of Missouri are definitely set for successes there. Another thing that it does is the 5-year Farm Bill cycle, our funding is through 2023. This would extend it to 2031 with kind of a ramp up of dollars as you go. And you can see each one of those programs, the additional increase of what that would look like over those multiple years. One quick thing I do want to mention, we do, besides just the individual connection with contracts with producers, we also have the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. That's a partnership between private and public dollars to really go out and do some innovative things. So we can do those projects built around soil health, specifically around cover crop, but it's a way to bring additional dollars into the state. Next slide. The final thing here is that with this administration, with the Secretary of Ag, they have made climate change and climate smart conservation #1 priority. So the executive order that was signed, and for us to develop this strategy, it is still in the early stage. They're finalizing this plan. The one, and I know it's probably difficult to see, but when you look at climate smart ag, there are 80 conservation practice standards and over 100 enhancements that are already in our portfolio. So when you take this potential additional funding, take the new move with climate smart ag, this is the very first section, soil health, and there are 14 conservation practices, cover crop being one of them, and about 35 enhancements. So I think the future for us building forward is we'll just be able to add more capacity, not only technical, but financial assistance for anybody that's looking to take this soil health initiative and move forward. I think that's my last slide, Rob. Just want to say thank you. Appreciate us being here, and looking forward to the conference.
Thank you again, Scott. We really appreciate your remarks and your leadership on conservation, and thanks for helping support this conference financially. So